What's up everyone, I'm Wendy, presenter with Bikes Online, and chances are if you're just getting into mountain biking, you have a few big questions. I know I did. So today I'm going to share with you 3 answers to 3 big questions to get you out on the trails and shredding this summer. So your first question might be, where do I even go? What trails do I ride and how do I find these trails? Now the first thing I do when I'm looking for a new trail is pull out my phone. One of the apps that I find the most helpful is Trail Forks. Another is Mountain Bike Project, and depending on your area, one might be better than the other. You can actually download ahead of time the trails so you know exactly where you are and where you need to turn. Now, if you're not the most tech savvy, I recommend going to your local bike shop. Those guys and gals in there are generally really helpful and can really help to kind of figure out the best trail for you, especially as a beginner. Another great way to get started on your local trails is by joining a Facebook group online. There's usually tons of those out there with maybe women-specific, men-specific, or a co-ed mountain bike ride. Oftentimes these groups will break up riders depending on their ability level. So you can get started with the beginners and then as you progress, move up with the team. Now another important part about choosing the right trail is knowing what's the best for your skill level. A green trail indicates it's a beginner level course. Blue, intermediate, and black diamond is typically the most difficult, and that can get up all the way to double black diamond. Not every trail is going to have these as nicely marked as they are here, but it's really helpful to see, am I on the right course if you have this blue versus if you veered off and accidentally get yourself stuck on a black diamond as a beginner. Not great. So question number 1 answered, we found our trail. Next question we want to ask ourselves is, how do I prepare myself for this ride? What do I need to bring and what don't I need to bring? Now this question could be asked in a lot of different ways and has a lot of different answers, but I'm going to go over just a few essentials I always have with me on the rides. I got my sunglasses, my helmet, gloves. Now gloves you might not think of right off the bat, but once you've had one bad fall and fallen on your hand and ripped up your hand, that's all it's going to take to get you to wear gloves. So why don't you just start with it? On a day like today, it's beautiful, it's warm. I'm going to make sure I'm in something lightweight. This is a lightweight jersey. I've got some lightweight mountain bike shorts, but the main and most important thing is that you're comfortable on the ride. That might mean on a simple trail ride, I'm gonna be in shorts and a t-shirt, but if I'm going on a downhill course or something a little bit more rocky or a bike park, I'm probably gonna put some riding pants on. If I'm doing just a few fun little jumps, I might just put my jorts on for a little style. So all of that's gonna depend on your style of riding, but again, don't overthink it. I always like to carry my hip pack with me, depending on the ride size and depending on what I'm doing. If I'm going on a really short ride, I may just grab my water bottle and a multi-tool and call it good. If I'm going on a little bit longer ride, I might pack this bad boy to the brim. One mountain bike essential I always have on the trail is snacks. Now this can look like anything from a sandwich to a granola bar to some fruit gummies, whatever it is, make sure you have snacks on the trail. That's a great way to get yourself into a bad situation and bonk on the trail once you're 10 miles back if you don't have a little sustenance. All right, so at this point, you found the trail, you got the gear you need, you're all packed up and ready to go. Chances are the next step is maybe doing a little bit of a climb. Now the big question here is how to make this climb suck less. I'm going to share just a few things to keep in mind when you're hitting the trails and you're doing some first climbs. Now the first thing you want to look at are your gears. When you find a nice little steep section, you may want to practice that and figure out what good gear is best. You also want to consider, especially if you're on a trail that has some ups and downs along the way, anticipating what's coming. If I see that the climb's about to get a little steeper, I'm going to start to shift down and make it a little easier on myself. Now on my Polygon Siskiyou T8, I have a wide range of gears and can get in that granny gear, and that means that I can just be spinning up a hill, or maybe it's a gravel road and I'm trying to just chat with my buddies. Now when I first started mountain biking, my biggest challenge on the climb was keeping my front end straight. I was more like this. I remember moving my arms around, my front was everywhere. Then I learned that actually I want to have as little weight on the handlebars as possible. Now, I do need to find a good balance of that, but even with that, it's more my body rather than my arms and hands that weights down the front tire. Just like learning anything else, there's always a million things we could talk about, but as a beginner, just focusing on 1 or 2 each ride and then building on those is probably the best way to tackle any new skill. Now we're on on to some fun descending. Woohoo! Now, the first thing I want you to think about when you are descending is getting comfortable standing up on your pedals and keeping them level. This might not feel very natural at first. I know it didn't feel natural for me, but really getting comfortable, getting over your bike, not sitting on the saddle, is gonna be a huge game changer in your riding. That leads me to my next point, dropper post. It's that little lever on your left hand. Now this is gonna be your best friend when learning to descend because it gets that seat out of your way and allows you to move freely over the bike. So whenever I come to a steeper descent or even just a moderate descent, I click that little lever, put my seat down, and get ready to go. Probably number one biggest thing in mountain biking in general, descending, ascending, is keeping your eyes ahead. Making sure I'm anticipating what's coming up on the trail and looking as far as I possibly can ahead. So if I see that there's a big turn coming, I'm gonna already see that. I'm not gonna be looking at my tire or this rock coming right there. And I'm certainly not gonna fix my eyes on that boulder or I'm gonna hit it. Now, so many of these tips could be an entire video on themselves, so I won't go into too much detail. But another important piece for the descent is feeling really comfortable with your brakes. When I am braking, I usually have one finger on my right and left brake. I apply about a similar amount of pressure. You'll hear a lot of mixed reviews about that. But I, especially starting out, will apply a similar amount of pressure when I want to brake. What I want to avoid is putting, 3, 4, my whole hand on these brakes and grabbing a fistful of brake when I don't really need to. Now I'm really looking forward to sharing with you all a few more beginner-focused videos over the course of the next few months to make sure this summer is the best MTB summer yet. And if you haven't picked out your new mountain bike yet, make sure you go over to Bikes Online. They have all the tools you need to make sure that you're choosing the bike that's best for you, that fits your budget, and that is gonna get you out there on the trails and progressing. Now get out there and get ripping.